So it is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Fesaha Gebrehiwot, also known as Dr. G, the Habesha dentist. Did I get all that right? Did I butcher it?
You got it all right.
Oh my gosh, you're looking mighty good today. Good to have you on the show. Dr. G is like no one you have met before. He started from very humble beginnings, having been born and raised in a small mountainous village in Eritrea, East Africa. He is one of 9 children, and the village where he grew up lacked basic access to clean drinking water, schools, and healthcare facilities. After East Africa was hit by a severe drought back in the 80s, his late father instilled in him from a very young age that education was the only ticket out of the uncertain farming lifestyle and having to be dependent on a rainy season to feed your family. As a result, Dr. G traveled 10 to 12 miles daily to the closest school available. Additionally, he and his siblings walked 2 to 3 miles daily to fetch drinking water. He got a lucky break when he won a diversity visa lottery to come to the United States. When he arrived, life was very challenging in all sorts of different ways, from learning to speak English to understanding what foods to eat and so on. He spent the first few years juggling time between work and school, eventually graduating with a degree in electrical engineering from Arizona State University. Hell yeah, that's where I got my MBA. After graduation, he worked for Motorola Freescale Semiconductor as a product engineer for a few years. Today, Dr. G has been practicing dentistry over 6 years, and his unique outlook regarding patient-focused care and empathy will be sure to exceed your expectations from the very first consultation. He enjoys treating people from all walks of life, including children, and his candid, authentic nature and outgoing personality is a great fit. I added this from your website. But anyway, my gosh, such an honor to have you on the show. You didn't mention Eritrea also had a civil war. Was that going on when you grew up, or were you already gone before the civil war?
Well, first of all, Howard, thank you so much for having me. I'm your biggest fan. Being here on your show, it means a lot to me because I literally use your podcast as an inspiration for me to build my practice. There are so many things I had no idea. So I would be clinging on your show, listening to what can I learn today from you, all the guests you brought in your show. If there was any information that was mentioned that interests me, if one of your guests mentioned a book, I went ahead and bought that book, read the book, like anything that I can get my hands on that was discussed in your show. I use that as inspiration to start a practice. So I just being here is just such an honor. You're my virtual mentor in a lot of ways. I've bought your book, read your book. I've done your 30-day MBA. I went through it twice. I listened to literally the first 1,000 episodes of your show. I listened to. So building my practice was a big. I've got a lot of information from you. I looked you up as an inspiration, a business leader. And so thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
You're too kind. Now I need to fly you to Phoenix and get you to convince my 4 sons to think just like that about their dad. And,
I will, for sure.
I'm just teasing. They're great kids. Well, you know what? The main thing I wanted to talk to you about, the kids are coming out, and a lot of them have lost hope. And they're depressed, and they went through a pandemic, and now, the stock market's about to crash. I mean, it's in bubble territory. A big, huge European war broke out again. These are tough times, but they think the smart thing to do is just go become an employee in a group practice. And a group practice multi-location is a DSO. What do you think about coming out of school? Do you think a lot of them say, well, you're never going to be able to compete with some Heartland that has 1,600 offices or Pacific Dental Steve Thorne that has 1,000. What advice would you give to a kid who's coming out and he's scared? She's got $500,000 in student loans, and she's looking at a baller like you and me, and she's like, that was a different era. That you didn't come out of school during a pandemic or after a pandemic, blah, 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 blah. Talk to that kid for a minute. What would you tell that kid?
I've done that. I graduated. So just kind of what you mentioned, I didn't come, I pretty much went to school with lots of challenges. So I graduated from dental school. I don't have any connections. I I couldn't find any private practice opportunity. So I actually ended up working for corporate for 5 years before I even opened a practice. So I've been there. So anybody that thinks that way, I mean, I get it. Initially, that's the mindset is that, you know, those corporates would come and it will tell you, well, you know, I've got a job for you, just take it. So I think the beauty of it is that, well, you have a job, you can take it. But ultimately, how you want your career path, you have to basically define the way you want to practice dentistry. So a lot of the corporate dentistry, in my own personal opinion, it's not for everybody. There's situations where it can be a lot stressful also. And so it's just a matter of deciding what is that you want. How do you want to practice dentistry? As far as the opportunity, it's still America. I believe in America. You know, obviously I'm speaking, I'm the American dream here, you know, coming with nothing and just trying to make it, you know, without any connection. So I would say that if your dream is to be in private practice, just go ahead and do it. There's no other way.
And I won't get started on the American dream because there's only one America, and that is for 500 years, people like you from Eritrea and me from Ireland, we traveled here with nothing but the shirt on our back and made it a better country. And then in 1917, during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, they closed down Ellis Island, and now it's all immigration. And then they wonder why. You know, I drove 15 hours to Beeville. All these small towns have all these abandoned buildings because we don't have the immigration. And if you want to make America great again, you need more people migrating from Eritrea and Ireland and tear down those walls and open up Ellis Island. Hell, I just heard on the news today, they're turning back people from the Ukraine. Because they didn't I mean, it's just, you know, that's all a big union move. I won't go there. My blood pressure, I'll probably have a stroke right here on my own show. And then the other thing is, you know, it's true in dental school. When you go to any dental school anywhere around, you raise up the hand and say, how many of you have a dentist in your family tree? And it's somewhere between a fourth or a third. And then if there's, I was the first dentist in my family, and my gosh, nobody was in healthcare or had a doctorate degree or whatever. And you came out of school and you didn't have any connection. Hell, you're born in another country, no dentist in your family. Did that make the struggle harder? Was that a harder?
Yeah, I mean, so especially for me, particularly one, I came as an adult to this country. So there's the language barrier, I mean, to begin with. So I was literally a decade older than your average dental student in my class. And so, you know, I'm here. I started dental school at age 32. And so not just the age, but also I'm starting below zero. You know, a lot of, you were right. In my class, probably 30% has someone in the family who's, you know, either mom is a dentist or uncle is a dentist and so whatnot. For me, I discovered dentistry at such a late age in my life that I don't have the background for it. And so, yes, was it challenging? Absolutely.
I think a lot of people look for a lot of reasons of why they're going to trip and fall down. You know, I wasn't born here. And plus on language, language is natural learning from like birth to like 6 or 7. If you dropped a kid in from Eritrea right into Paris, France on the playground at age 2, by 6 they talk French and no, they didn't even take lessons. But that slowly goes away by about age 12. So when you come here as an adult, I know people that came here from Mexico after they were 20 and now they're 60. And even though they know English and speak English, I don't know a word they're saying. So that was another huge handicap. So basically, you were in Seattle. You went to dental school in Seattle, right?
Yes.
And did you, before that, but after Seattle, you came to Arizona, right?
Yeah. So
and that was mainly just because you knew the Seahawks were evil and the Arizona Cardinals were God's team.
And well, I wish I could say that, but frankly, so I'm here in Seattle. I couldn't find, you know, after dental school, I couldn't find a single job. There's nothing I could have done. So the first few months out of dental school, I mean, I didn't have a job. On top of that, Seattle is cold and depressing. And so I said, you know what? I'd rather be in the warm weather and hungry than, hungry in the cold weather. So I decided to move back to Arizona. Arizona is the place that I've done my undergrad, I've lived. And so it was just a little easier for me to get started in Arizona.
Yeah, and how did you so when you came to Arizona, you started in corporate?
I did, yeah.
And by the way, a lot of people, they'll come in and say, "Oh, I hate corporate." I'm like, "Dude, Rick Workman has 1,600 offices, and you worked there for a year, and all you can do is whine." I mean, what management gifts did you learn and something? I mean, Steve Thorne's not even a dentist. I mean, his dad's a dentist. He thought, why should I go to 8 years of college to be a dentist when I can hire one on Craigslist in 8 minutes? And now he has 1,000 dentists working for him. So, did you think doing a residency in corporate, looking back, do you think that helped you in your private practice startup, or do you think it was a total waste of time?
No, it's not a waste of time. I learned a lot. I learned the things that I don't want to do. I learned the things that I want to do. So, as far as which one is better, there's no which one is better kind of situation. You just kind of have to figure out what works for you. And so for me, the corporate setting didn't really work out for me as much as it did for other people. But does that mean I didn't learn? I learned a lot. I learned how they run the business. I learned, the all-inclusive is the way to go today. So having multi-specialty practice is just the way to go. And so that's kind of how I'm setting up my practice to be, bringing specialists into my office. And so there's tons I learned from it.
Well, when you said that the corporate setting didn't have the same values you have, I'd like to add that at age, I'm 59, I graduated in 87. So in those 3 decades, I've never seen 2 dentists agree on anything. I mean,
Sure.
On Dentaltown, they'll fight to death over a bonding agent. And, so everybody sees anything different, but your values, what would, if the CEOs of DSOs were watching this,
Yeah.
where did they lose you? What kind of values, where did they lose an amazing man like you? I mean.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So for me, honestly, the patient care is always been in my core because just there is a background to it. I came to a dentist's office at age 25 for my first time. So somebody has to literally handhold me, educate me about the benefits and all of it to a point where I have to actually make that a career choice. So for me, the patient care is on the top of the list. Unfortunately, when you have corporate setting, it's not necessarily, that's not what I at least perceived. That was not the priority.
So you thought it wasn't people oriented enough, or it wasn't trust enough, or what would you say?
No, it's not that. I mean, it really depends. So in corporate dentistry, it depends who each individual owner has their own way of running things. So I think, having a blank statement is not fair for corporate dentistry. But the experience that I had was that I just wanted to build a lasting relationship with patients. And so I figured the only way I could do that would be if I start my own practice.
I think that's amazing. I love what you're saying. Your favorite saying was the LD Panky. I never had a tooth walk into my office. People walk into the office. Yeah. And
I love that saying.
I cannot tell you how many dental offices I've stood in, and the dentist will go do a hygiene check, and he walks right in the operatory and looks right at the view box and starts looking at the radiographs, then talks over the patient's head, says, he has a MO on 3, DO on 4, and it's like, oh my God, dude. I mean, you walked in and looked at a view box? What are you, a radiologist? I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, it's all humans, and I think you only have about a minute to establish trust, and it's guys like you that are confident, that walk in there, look them in the eyes, touch them somehow, shake their hand, pat them on the shoulder, how are you doing? And then every religion known to man for the last 5,000 years could be summed up in one word, the golden rule: treat other people like you want to be treated. And then I add to it to my boys when they always try to rationalize and justify something they want to do that's crazy. I said, dude, I don't care what you do as long as you're good with it being on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow morning. And if you're like, oh yeah, that's it, and you know, if you don't want to see it on the front page of the paper, don't do it. If you don't want to have someone do this to you, don't do it. I love that that LD Pinky quote that we both love.
You know, I love that quote. The first time I heard it, it just struck a nerve, and I love that. And so when I was working in corporate setting, I used to say this all the time to management. I was like, this is what it should be. This is, you know, but anyway, so for me, you know, in my private practice, I mean, I love handshaking to my patients, you know, I'm talking to them, getting to know them. And so, and there's no other way building a practice than building a relationship with people.
Yeah. And you talked about intimacy. And a lot of people think intimacy is sex related, and it's not. It's being a close friend. It's being private and personal. It's about being honest. It's about, you know, just honesty and empathy and sympathy and treating other people like you want to be doing. And when I hear, you know, Arizona's ground zero for group practice, multi-location DSOs. I mean, because our governor, I believe in competition. I believe in my two big things. I think America was built on 500 years of immigration of everybody who wanted to be an American, and be transparent and have a lot of competition. And then as it got older, they realized they could bribe off the government and put in tariffs and limit immigration because they thought they'd be cheap labor and compete against the unions and the Bolshevik Revolution and all that stuff. Is like, no, man, we just want lots of people who are so motivated that they'd pick up and move to a different continent, to a different hemisphere. I mean, you know, and work their brains out. And I just think it was a great thing. But you have to be honest and integrity and treat other people and all that kind of stuff. One thing I noticed about the DSOs, the group practice multi-locations, is, you know, we talk about LD Panky, but there's no DSO called the Panky Institute. But there's the Mayo Clinic, where patients were first, Mayo Clinic. You have Scripps in San Diego. You have the Sloan Kettering Fetting. There's a lot of big, the Cleveland Clinic. I can name 6 or 7 hospitals that have, you know, top 10% outcomes of quality. And then in America, every DSO has the same business model. Well, we want to go to the richer suburbs where they have dental insurance. We don't want to go where there are poor people and there's no dental insurance. And we like the household income to be about $60,000 a year. Okay, so treat other people turned out to be just treat richer upper class in the suburbs. Where's the people treating the poor? Aspen is the only one that's really focused on dentures, and they go where they ain't. That's why I like Aspen the most, because they're going to the poor. I'm not worried about America's rich and upper class. I think how a country treats its poorest person is the truth about the country. And America, if you look at the homeless situation, that's the real heart and soul of the government. You know what I mean? The Republicans and Democrats not letting people come here, turning down Ukrainians. They turned down Jewish people during World War II and turned them back, knowing what their fate would be. So I love guys like you and me who don't change a beat if they're talking to a homeless guy on the street or a king or a queen. It's the same attitude, the same I don't care where you are on the spectrum of wealth and power and prestige. Every human is a human. And so do you think your background growing up in Eritrea is still with you in your heart and soul, and that affects you and how you think about life and treat your patients today?
Absolutely. So let me just say this. It's funny because I'm an authentic guy, you know, so I don't have two personalities. I am just one person, whether I'm in the office, you know, whether I'm outside of the office. I wanted to live one life. And so when I was in DSO, there was some training about how scripted you have to be. And I'm like, I'm not a scripted kind of guy. And so they would tell me like, well, you have to say this and this and this. I'm not doing that. So my conversation has to be authentic with people. When I have a 5-year-old, my conversation is a very authentic 5-year-old conversation. When I have a 93-year-old, it's going to be an authentic 93-year-old conversation. And so does it help me, the fact that I'm an immigrant? Absolutely. I've been there. I've been in their shoes. When I have a patient show up in my office who has not been to a dental practice before, I've been there. So I know how they feel. And so I'm returning the favor. Someone actually walked me through to get my oral health in order. I'm trying to do the same thing in a different time frame.
Beautiful. So another, I love your name, Trusted Dental Care. And I love that name. I mean, there's gentle dental care for pain. But like I say, none of the DSOs, all the DSOs went to the upper middle class, targeted 60,000 household. Nobody has started a DSO like on the Mayo Brothers, like the Pankey clinics, or there's no high end DSO. Those are all individuals. And the low end, when there's a market failure, when dentists don't focus on the low end, then that's a market failure. The government steps in. And most of your Medicaid clinics around Arizona are government run. You go on the Indian reservations, they're all FHQ. It's like I would, and not to mention it's dumb because there's more money in McDonald's than Ruth's Chris. Would you rather own Ruth's Chris Steakhouse so a bunch of rich people driving Mercedes can eat? Or would you rather own McDonald's? I'm pretty damn sure you'd rather own McDonald's, So I don't know why dentistry is over infatuated with like all on four. Oh my God, you could have a dental career from dental school to death 5 times and never do an all on four. But you walk into the dental convention and it's like all on four. And then they'll bring in some prosthodontist doing a full mouth rehab. And when I was taking the class, I would just stand up because I'd say, hey, by the way, be honest. Who hasn't done a full mouth rehab one time this year? And all the hands would go up. So it's like if you had dentistry, 80% of dentistry is I got to pull this hopeless tooth and place an implant in there. Or I can save this toothache and do a root canal, build up and crown. And what do my homies say when they come out of school? Half of them say, well, I don't like root canal. Well, I don't give a shit. I'm sure in the last 250,000 years, your ancestors didn't like being stuck in a cave eating mastodon shit. But you got to do what you got to do. And the market is a toothache. And you're either going to do a root canal, build up and crown, or you're going to extract it and do an implant. And if you don't want to do it, you should give your license to someone that will.
And frankly, a patient coming in with toothache, doing endo and crown is probably the most satisfying procedure, at least for me. It's just because, they're coming and you're meeting them at their worst time. And so if you can help at that situation, that's it. I've got so many patients in my office that was the beginning of the relationship, and that's it. After that, oh my God, that root canal didn't hurt. So it's all in the head. So people have all these horrible stories about root canal that if it didn't hurt, I mean, all of a sudden they put you on this higher scale. So I agree with you. So doing the endo and crown single implant that's real dentistry.
And another thing is, one of the things they get in most trouble about is they say, well, I can't pull that tooth, and what if I broke off a root tip? You know what the research is on root tips? It only becomes a problem when dumbass tries to get it out and drills around it and hits a nerve, all that kind of stuff. But if it's 5 millimeters or smaller, it's almost never an issue until the body's working it out like a splinter, and then you go in there with tweezers and pick it out. So, when your ego's saying, oh my God, I broke off a little tip, I got to go get that out. That's when you hit a lingual nerve. That's when you get a paresthesia. My God, think about that tooth, this big old toothache. You probably got out 99% of the tooth, with all the bacteria infection, and then that little bitty apex, and you had to go get it. Just leave it. And on a root canal, there are 4,000 endodontists if you can't figure if you attempt it. But when you sit there and say, well, they play against me. They take my own words and use them against me. You go, well, I thought of treat other people like you want to be treated, and I thought, well, I'd rather have an endodontist do it. Well, yeah, you're a rich damn dentist. And was that endodonist born with already 1,000 molars under his belt? I mean, when was the umbilical cord already cut off and he had files in his hand? I mean, everybody has to do something for the first time. And my gosh, the first is the worst. But you do a root canal and it scares you. But after you do 10, you're less scared. After you do 100, you're less scared. And by the time you've done 1,000, you feel like you would do one on your own mom.
I agree with you. Frankly, so for me, my patient population, I've got lots of immigrant patient population. They don't want even to go. I mean, they come to see me and that's it. And they don't want to even go to see an endodontist. So I have to do it. It's just that.
And when I was in, when I'm in small towns, like I'm in Beeville a lot, and I go to patients and I just say, well, how do you like dentistry in Beeville? And then I ask everyone, what do you like? I always ask people, what do you like the most about your dentist? What do you like the least? What would you never change? What would you change tomorrow? Number one thing they say in every single small town I go to is like, well, every time you need a root canal, they say you got to drive an hour to Corpus or 90 minutes to San Antonio or 3 hours to Houston. And I trust my doctor and I love my dentist and I just wish the hell he would do it. And he won't do anything. And it's like, okay, so when people come in, here's the thing I gotta just beat in everyone's head is that same-day dentistry is how humans work. Impulsive shopping. Like I went to the grocery store today. I had no idea I was going to buy a whole bunch of cans of smoked almonds until I just saw them. And then I thought, you can't say no to a can of smoked almonds. I mean, you impulsively throw shit in the cart all day long. And the bottom line is, that tooth chipped off 3 years ago, and then it was kind of tingling for the last 6 months. But today it hurts. And that's just because pressure's building up. You only have 5 nerves, hot, cold, movement, pressure, pain. So the pressure's building up, and they come in today, and they'll get treatment if you do it today. It hurt. If they need a root canal, they'll do it today. But if you sit there and say, well, you got to make an appointment, and you got to drive to Corpus or Houston or San Antonio, and they can't get in for 10 days, and that pressure pops, and then the pain goes away, and then they don't even go, and now you got a person with an abscessed tooth because you couldn't do same-day dentistry. And the dentists are entitled. It's like, well, I can't do it today. Well, you can't do it today? You're going to send them home and then you're going to take a lunch hour? Why can't you miss a lunch? Well, I don't want to miss lunch. Well, firemen do. Astronauts do. There's a shitload of people that went to the moon that skipped all their lunches and dinners and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, my God, if they got a toothache, skip lunch, work through lunch. At the end of the day, take one in, do your extraction or molar endo at the end of the day. So instead of taking an hour, if it ends up taking 2 or 3, no big deal. But what can you do to help? I mean, if they're going to pay off $500,000 student loans, they better learn how to do a root canal, lip and crown. And they better learn how to extract a tooth and place a single implant. They don't need to learn veneers and all on fours and all this hooty-tooty stuff. But talk to my homie. How can you motivate him to get over the fear of molar endo and placing an implant?
So I didn't start out doing molar endo at the beginning. You start with your comfort, single canal, and then just, like he said, your first endo is going to be hard. And then by the time you do 10, it gets easy. I think, honestly, so nowadays, especially with the systems that we have, Wave 1 or other systems, it's not as difficult it's not as scary as if we did it the traditional way. So what I would say for anybody young starting out is that just get comfortable doing, single canals and then just slowly work on maybe lower molar, and then just before you know it, you're comfortable.
And by the way, I have so many people I know that are afraid to place an implant, but they pull extracted molars. I mean, if you could pull 4 set of wisdom teeth, that takes a lot more skill than a single implant. Yeah. I mean, so fear is a big thing. It really messes with people's heads. You said that one of the favorite things you heard me say was you have to act like you're running for mayor. And when you're talking about trust, you're talking about word of mouth referral. I mean, you could talk to my kids. Like the last year, every physician was invited to my house for charcoal dinner. I got in, I think, every chiropractor but one. I'm talking in a 1 year time. I bring in healthcare people. I didn't even know what the hell they're talking about. Like, what was that lower, Kyle? What was that lower? The girl doctor, the lower feminine, the pelvic floor. Yeah, the pelvic floor. I'm a guy. I didn't know there was a pelvic floor. But the deal is, it's about trust. And when you, the pharmacist, you wouldn't believe how many people would go up to the pharmacist. I got a toothache. Should I take Ambisol or should I take this or that, or which is better, Bufferin or ibuprofen? And they go, dude, you know what's best is call Howard. I got him in my iPhone. He tells me just call him on his iPhone, and then I can do teledentist. I was doing teledentistry as soon as the iPhone came out. I mean, because you just said, well, hold it up, and you could tell them over the phone. They come over, but man, you got to get out and press the flesh. How did you run for mayor?
So, Howard, by the way, so I do appreciate you. Like I said, I've read your 30-day MBA. You didn't give me my certificate yet. I hope you mail me one. I've read your book. Everything you talked about, I can picture you, the 24-year-old Howard, building a practice. I can picture that. You were running from a CE to another CE, you were doing all this kind of stuff. So I just admire that relentlessness that you had. And so I was inspired by that 24-year-old Howard, really. And so what you said about you have to run like a mayor is that, I took that to heart. And so I moved from Phoenix to the Dallas area, just a place that I have never been before. And so my goal was just to get to know people, handshake people, build a community. And so, like you said, you did teledentistry. Now whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, I have immigrant communities like from Eritrea or Ethiopia that send me messages from Ethiopia all the way, or from Sudan, because they have no other access. And so they would send me a picture on their Instagram account and say, what should I do here? I've talked to patients I've talked to someone in Israel, I've talked to someone in Uganda. So basically what you said is that there's certain community service you have to do. And that's part of building a practice, is that you have to be available to people. And so for me, yes, building the practices is not easy. Obviously, there's a lot of things you don't know that you're discovering as you go. But if you take care of the people, if you build a community, it just gets easier and easier. That's what I'm finding.
Now, when you're in your practice, do you give them less anesthesia if they're a Cowboys fan? From all the suffering we've endured watching them, do you share a little suffering with them? Do you do that? No, I'm just.
No.
Bad joke. My gosh. Another thing. You read the E-Myth. You talk about the FAGD, because where the FAGD was so special for me is when you get out of school, you just want to take everything that your patients have, and everything they were having. I needed help with composites. They were going from amalgam to composites. I wanted to just take composites and crown and bridge courses, and of course, the FAGD are making you want to take, they want to take implants. I said, dude, I'm not doing implants. They said, well, you got to do ortho. And it's like, I'm not doing ortho. And they go, well, you have to take, so many in each categories. And then when they forced me to do that, I remember I had to travel all the way to Pittsburgh because there was this guy no one had heard of before named Carl Mish that had this 7 3-day week. And I'm like, who is this guy? But if I go, I'll knock out that requirement. Oh my God. After the first hour, I was in love with Carl. I was, it was like I discovered Africa. Like I said, well, you can't get your FAGD until you go to Africa. And then you showed up in Eritrea and you're like, oh my God. Because I've been to I think Africa is 58 countries. And I think me and the boys have been to 32 of them. And just love it. But it was the structure of the FAGD that pushed me in areas I didn't care about. And then when that wisdom really helped me. And you went to Mish, you went to Dawson. You put in 100 hours of CE at Spear. And then I got my homies saying, Well, I just got a dental degree. I don't need any more education. I just and I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. And they think you're supposed to like genuflect and make the sign of the cross or something. Talk to my young homie who doesn't want to take 100 hours of CE.
So for me, you know, again, you know, it's partly because how I grew up, and so what got me here is the hard work and the desire to learn new things. That's really what got me here, and that's how I look at it. And so there's still a lot of things that I need to learn and to take me to the next level. So as far as dentistry, you know, actually I took a lot of the inspiration from you because, you know, listening to you at that young age, you know, you were going to Mission, you were going to Dawson, you were going to all these kind of places. I was like, wow, that's just crazy, you know. So I started with the Spear, and I did the facially generated treatment planning at the location, and then I did the online thing. And you know, the amount of information that I've gotten from there was just mind blowing. And I say, wow, there's just so much things that I had no idea, and that I didn't know, that either I wasn't ready. So the more courses I've taken, my world is opening a lot more, and you know, I'm meeting great mentors and great people along the way, and so it's making me a better dentist than I was before.
I love also your YouTube channel, and congratulations, you have over 25,000 views on your YouTube channel. But I wanted to go the name. Talk about the name. It's the Habesha, the Habesha dentist. What is the Habesha dentist?
So Habesha is just a region in where I came from, East Africa. It covers certain part of Eritrea, Ethiopia, and so the people that are from that region are named by the. So Habesha is just a region, basically. Okay. It's a kingdom. It's an old kingdom. Yeah.
It's an old kingdom, but
yes.
Is it all in Eritrea?
Eritrea and Ethiopia.
It's what?
Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Okay, but didn't they have a civil war, Ethiopia and Eritrea?
Yes. So we don't really call it civil war. There is an independence war. So Eritrea and Ethiopia. It was a long, bloody war for 30 years for Eritrea's independence.
Yeah, but were you living there during the war?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was right in the middle of it. Yeah.
So from what age to what age were you living in a war?
I mean, pretty much Eritrea, the entire Eritrea was so it was a battleground. So if you lived in Eritrea in the 80s and the 90s, you were at war, basically. Every family has lost, you know, someone to the war, you know, directly or indirectly.
Did you lose someone in your family to the war?
Absolutely. I mean, every family. It just absolutely. Yeah.
The most in my face, I could not believe it, is when I lectured for the first time in Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge, and it took me a while because I couldn't figure out how the dentists under like 30 and under, they're all just like American, and they're all this and high energy and fun. But everybody that was my age was like talking to a zombie, and they were dead inside. And it took me about a day or two before one of the dentists realized, one of his kids, I turned to him and I said, did I say something wrong to your dad, or did I? And then he took me aside and he said, dude, he said, when the Khmer Rouge came in power, they killed like a quarter of the whole country. Everybody at that age group has found had watched family members killed, died, murder, whatever. And now we're seeing the Ukraine-Russian war, which, the most of these wars, everybody wasn't walking around with a damn iPhone, and it's just shocking. And are you just a strong person, or do you fight a lot of battles inside from growing up in those conditions, or how do you have such a beautiful attitude when you grew up in those types of conditions?
So I think when you grow up in those kind of situations, you've been at the lowest point in your life. So you can only go up. I mean, that's basically how I look at it. Coming here, you come here with nothing. So you can only build up. And so it's not like I don't have that baggage of like, well, I used to be this or that. I just have to transform myself given with the opportunities that I have here. So that's that. But, only the difference between the war that we've grown up versus the Ukraine-Russia war is really, when we were growing up, the war was as intense, but nobody was recording it. Nobody knew about it. And so now everybody's got the phone, everybody's recording it. I think that's the difference. I can tell you that right now, in Ethiopia, Eritrea, there is more probably deaths than the current war going on. But because nobody has the iPhone, nobody has the smartphone, you just don't know about it.
Yeah, I think it's I don't think America could have been in Vietnam killing 3 million people and losing 56,000 soldiers if everybody's walking around with an iPhone.
Exactly.
It was just out of their mind.
Yeah.
Which goes back to my two things. Transparency. So instead of sitting at home in America saying the Pledge of Allegiance while they're dropping napalm at 30,000 feet on women and children for a decade, and then they did in Afghanistan for 2 decades, and now I think that the smartphone. In fact, when I saw the smartphone platform, oh my God, I beat Facebook by 5 years. I launched mine in '98. Facebook was 2004, and I knew this was going to level the playing field in dentistry and everything, because instead of just being spoon-fed from the purple Kool-Aid from the top guy, now the bottom guy on the platform is like, I drank your Kool-Aid and it tastes like urine. And so I just love that, how it's coming. You're also but back to running for mayor. I see you have a flair for social media. Hell, you got 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. You got 25,000 views on your YouTube channel. A lot of dentists are introverts, and they're shy and they're afraid of things. Talk to that guy who's afraid to run to mayor. Talk to that guy who's afraid to when he's filling his own prescription at the pharmacy on his own corner, is afraid to say, hey, I was wondering, Fesaha, would you like to come over on Friday and grill barbecue at my house? And they're just like, that's scary to them. It's frightening. How do you run for mayor if you'd rather be doing math and physics and chemistry problems than talking to someone about, the Dallas Cowboys?
Howard, believe it or not, I was not the most social guy until probably, I don't know, late 20s or even maybe early 30s. I was not social at all. But I think what happens was that once I discovered this personal development, I was in this journey of developing, and before you know it, I pretty much transformed myself. So anybody that knew me, let's say 15 years ago, probably will tell you the quietest guy. Nobody would imagine me speaking or being on social media, being out in the open. Nobody would imagine that. But it's just, all I can say is that it's just like anything else. You can learn it. You can slowly become more confident and develop certain skills that you didn't have. So obviously for me, in fact, coming here with the broken English and not being able to communicate very well, those were also barriers. Now it don't bother me. Just even if my English is broken, it doesn't matter. Now I can confidently and say it, and so it's not just the words spoken only, but your body language says something. You're genuine. All things just kind of contribute to your social media. But the point of being the mayor is, you have to kind of consider you're just beyond a dentist. Obviously, Howard, you go to Cambodia, you go to all parts of the world to make an impact. And so I think, so for me, whatever I am, the social media is a great platform to make an impact. Because like I said, on LinkedIn, someone would send me an X-ray or a picture of all the way from Uganda and tell me, and they ask me, it's like, I have this 5-year-old, what should I do? And there's just no better place than having that social media presence where you can make an impact.
You said something. That you basically. I'm going to use your words. Where basically you turned your house and your car into you turned your vehicle into a library. You started listening to Good to Great, the E-Myth, all these courses and continue ed. And today I noticed there's a lot of dentists and there's a lot of people, even in my family, where for 2 weeks they've been watching this Ukraine daily, and it's depressing. I mean, you can't watch this stuff, and
I don't watch it.
Yeah,
I don't watch it.
yeah,
I don't watch it.
And the thing I say to the Americans, like, okay, if it's making you feel bad and there's nothing you can do about it. Furthermore, you live in the United States, who has been at war for 225 of the 243 years of its inception since 1776. I mean, where were you crying out when we were bombing Syria? During Obama's presidency, I think he said they dropped and shot at least one bullet in 7 different countries every day of his presidency. But it wasn't on TV, because if America does it, it's all good. But if Russia does the exact same thing, it's bad. And Russia and the United States are both. So quit watching war and start watching clinical dentistry or what are your thoughts?
So for me, I'm going to say this, the things that I have no control over, this, I cannot make any contribution to it. So I don't even watch TV, period, because the news is so depressing that I've stopped watching TV probably 10 years ago. So, having the podcast, having the audiobooks in your car or at home, I'm driving, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to your podcast. I'm listening to all these other amazing recordings that there are. I mean, there's audiobooks, there's all kinds of stuff that is helpful for me to grow as a person. So right now, trust me, I grew up in war where, I've seen people being bombed and killed and all those things. It's not a place that you want to be. I mean, I feel sorry for the people that are going through war right now, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Syria, all over the world. But so for me, I just don't have the mindset of watching news that will depress me. That's beyond me.
Yeah, if it's not making you happy, maybe you shouldn't do it, right?
Yeah,
and furthermore, I notice the only time Americans get upset is when someone else is doing what they always do. You know what I mean? It's like it's okay when the Americans drop napalm on women and children for a decade, and but when someone else starts doing it, avoid politics. Avoid everything that triggers you and makes you not a happy camper. And that little kid coming in who's 10 years old and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed doesn't need to see some depressed if something's depressing you, or a friend or an employee. I mean, I know dentists where, I cannot believe this is so funny. One of my best friend dentists, every time I've ever been in his office and he sees his hygienist pull up and he knows she's going to walk through his private office, he runs out of his back office and will go hide in the break room because he hates her that much. I'm like, dude, you don't pay someone money who you hate. I mean, you should be driving to work saying, "Oh, I can't wait to see my assistant and my EFTA and my hygienist." But I mean, my God, you pay people money who you hate and hide from, and if every time sports, I mean, there are dentists that their team has never won the playoffs in their lifetime. And every season they just watch the game and get madder and madder and madder. Dude, change sports. Is there any team in your town that wins at anything? My gosh, you just, you gotta, what I tell my boys, you gotta learn your tool. And
luckily, I don't have that problem. I love my employees. Frankly, they're not even employees. I mean, I'm excited to show up to the office. We make it's such fun being around people you like. And that's my first criteria on that topic, is that, if you don't like the person, there's just no way. There's no room for that person to be in the office. It shouldn't be. So you want to, let alone just employees, even patients. If a patient is, making you feel good every time, or they should find a place where they should be happy. So
I noticed there's today in the paper, a jury convicts a former Jackson dentist who intentionally damaged patients' teeth to support insurance claims on crowns. This is today. A lot of older dentists are like me, and others are thinking, do you think, I graduated from school, $87,000 student loans. My next door neighbor growing up, Kenny Anderson, he probably had like 8,000. Now they come out with $500,000. Do you think they're in so much debt that it incentivizes them to do unnecessary dentistry because they're so broke? Does there reach a point where you've lost so much money that you just start doing evil shit like that, or do you think not?
I don't think so. I think a person's character is a character. It don't matter, whether you have that much debt or not. So for me, I think it's a character. Somebody has a bad character, they will do it whether they have debt or not debt. That's just my 2 cents on that topic.
Okay. Gosh, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on for 40 years and 40 nights. Back to immigrants. I have friends. I probably shouldn't mention this deal, but my immigrants I'm talking about are my Iranian friends, my Persian dentist friends. They say, no, I don't want to treat my own people Iranians, because every one of them will come in here and say, well, come on, we're both Iranians, give me a smoking deal, and they expect it done half off. And some other tribes, they really want to get everybody in. Like if you're from Eritrea, maybe you want everybody from Eritrea. But I know all my Farsi friends in Phoenix think the exact opposite. Like, no, every one of them wants a deal. How do you wrap your mind around something that controversial?
I love to see our Eritrean patients, our Ethiopian patients. I love it. And the reason is we have so much trust. There's just so much built-in trust that I have patients drive literally from the whole Dallas area, anywhere between 10 to 20, 30 miles away, they come to my office. So, and just that's because there's such a built-in trust that's been passed from generation to generation, that there's just so much trust. And so I love seeing our immigrant community population. But I've heard of that. I have a lot of other immigrant dentist friends that feel the same way. I have Persian dentists that don't really like seeing Persian patients, or Indian doctors don't really like to see Indian doctors. So I hear this a lot, but I don't know if it's just me personally. I love our community. And there's nothing that I can do to change that.
So what % of your practice would be Eritrean?
Probably 50%. Yeah.
Half. So there's that big of a Eritrean community in Dallas?
Yeah.
Now some groups, when they come to the United States, they'll stay in a certain area. Is Dallas the go-to place for Eritrea? If you're coming in from Eritrea, is that one of the first places you would think about going, or?
No, there's it's not. It's got a big community, but there's other places like Washington D.C., Seattle has a big Eritrean community. Oakland has a big Eritrean community. So, but the Dallas area has enough Eritrean community as well. The most interesting thing that I found about our Eritrean community is I've had a lady flew all the way from Washington, D.C. last week to see me. She's 93 years old. She came all the way from Washington, D.C. So that's what I love about it. It's so gratifying. People have that so much trust in you that they're willing to fly from out of state.
So you love the Eritrean community?
I love, yeah. Absolutely.
Another thing about your website that I'm blown away. You have 376 total reviews, and they average 4.9. how do you get so many reviews? I mean, you have more reviews than I think all the dentists in Dallas combined. How did you do that? What's your secrets? Are you running for mayor? Are you asking for these? Or is it just saying, can you do me a favor? Can you write me a review? What do you think?
I think, frankly, for a review, I'll give you my personal experience. So for a review, you get a review, either one, you exceed their expectation, or the other way around would be you really disappoint the customer. So two extremes is when you get a review. Just an example, I've been an Amazon customer for the last 15 years. I've never written a review. Just because I expected, the package will be delivered, expected, that's it. The only one time I wrote a review was, it exceeded my expectation. I wrote a review. In 15 years, I wrote one review on Amazon. And so, I have patients coming into my office, they had a certain expectation. If we exceed their expectation, then we get a review. Or when I have few bad reviews, either we didn't take their insurance, it's beyond my control. And so, that's how I feel a review is. A review is not something that people would give you, but if you exceed it, if they had such a great experience, if you take care of them, then they would definitely give you a review.
Nice. I noticed you on your professional organization, you've been trained at the Dawson Academy, the Mission Plan Institute. You're a member of the Academy of General Dentistry, but the Academy of Clear Aligners. Clear aligners. That's a big deal, isn't it? And in your patient mix, where does like if you did 100 procedures, what percent would be something you learned would be implant related versus clear aligners? Is clear aligners how big is clear aligners, and do you think that's a good place to spend your time learning more about dentistry?
Frankly, so when you deal, like I said, I have 50% of my patients are immigrants. What that means is perio is a big deal. There's a lot of perio in immigrant communities. So partly is because, let's say me growing up, never been to a dentist, you'd come here and you would spend the first 5 years trying to figure things out. You spend the first 5-10 years you're just trying to get ahead, and you're either in school or you're working minimum paying job. So you don't really have the luxury to go to a dentist. So by the time you have some money to go to a dentist, there is a lot of damage that's already done. So the biggest thing that I do see in our practice is perio. So which means also that there's tooth loss. Implant is a big part of my practice.
One thing I want to tell people about search engine optimization, Dennis, you're always going to some seminar by some guy, getting paid $1,000 to speak at a convention or at a Holiday Inn, and he's telling you how to show up on Google search engine. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bill Gates at Microsoft would pay you $1 billion if he could get those secrets, because Microsoft wants to know, Yahoo wants to know, and if Microsoft and Yahoo can't figure it out, how does the guy at the Holiday Inn know? I mean, how's this course? But one thing that's pretty obvious is everybody does their search on Google, on Alphabet, and then you go to their website and they got a Hotmail email address or an AOL. If your email says AOL.com, everybody just assumes you have diabetes and erectile dysfunction. Use a Gmail. I mean, my favorite YouTube video of yours has 3,000 views. A nice chat with a sweet Eritrean mother. And you're just handling her with such love and care. And when you're on YouTube and you got this YouTube video with 3,000 views, and then your website has a Gmail address, and then someone's in Dallas and they're searching dentist near me, Google's going to point them your way. So it's a Google thing. And a lot of dentists that I talk to, especially the younger ones, they think they're going to build up their whole practice on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And I'm like, no, get out there and press the flesh in the real. And I would be more trying to kiss Google's butt than Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Talk about that. You're younger. You're a lot younger. Am I old and that's bad advice?
No, you're not old, Howard. You know exactly what you're talking about, and I learned everything from you anyway. So, when I first started, I paid some marketing company, and they promise you all kinds of promises that they will rank you on the top and all BS. The reason I say that is you can pay as much as how much you want to pay. One, it's what you do with the patients that really count. They can send you, let's say, one patient. What can you do with that patient? Can you relate to that patient? Can you make that connection with that patient to a point where they trust you enough to treat them, and then they go home and say, tell their significant others, their family, their this and that. So what I learned is that, yes, when we first started, I paid some marketing company to get me started. After the first year, I don't even have a marketing. I'm my own personal marketing, because what you said is that if you treat the people right, then you'll get the referral is more. So right now, all I have is just a website. I don't even have a paid ad or anything like that.
Nice. Again, I know everybody thinks they can stay in their pajamas and just post on Instagram and they're going to get, and all the work will be done. But, when I owned my practice, I went door to door. I knocked on every single house in 85044 on Saturday and Sunday mornings until I knocked on every damn house, and probably one out of every three came in. And that's just, every time I would tell my boys, or the ex-wife, I'd say, they'd say, well, can I buy this or can I buy that? I said, if you're in Ahwatukee, you're in 85044, you can buy anything you want. Yeah. But if you want to go drive across town and drop 10 grand, those people didn't give us that 10 grand. All that money came from Ahwatukee and spreading the love, and, and then when you're going out to eat, hell, you're already going out with 4 kids. They're seen their parents 1,000 times. Why not call the chiropractor across the street? Why not call the guy from the garage? I really like the guy from Gulick's Auto, because we're actually twins. I grew up with 5 sisters. I've never changed a spark plug. I don't know what lifters are. But when I go in there, because my car won't start, I hoping it's a battery, and I don't know if it's the electrical or the alternator or whatever the hell. I'm just looking at it, and I'm just looking around, and he's talking blah, 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 blah. And I'm just thinking, can I trust this guy? And then the things kick in. Well, he's been working here 10 years. And then you sit there and you talk to his other mechanics. Well, how long you been here? And there's one big company out here where, oh my God, I was using George Brazil for air conditioning guy. And like the 5 times I used him, all 5 guys just started the other day. And I'm like, why the hell does no one keep it? And then I find out there's no base pay. And when they're here to fix your air conditioner, they only get a commission if they upgrade you to buying a new air conditioner. And that's not what your mama taught you. That's not going to make your mama proud. And so, I'd say, well, they'd say, well, you want to stay home, cook, go out for dinner. And I'd tell my kids everything. Hey, you get me anybody in healthcare to join us for dinner, I'll go out for dinner. I'll go to the nicest steakhouse. But let's bring them. And then it was more exciting for them because they've heard all their stuff from Dad, but it's fun for them to have dinner with someone who's a chiropractor or a physician or a podiatrist, and it really opens up their minds. So again, you get out of your comfort zone and go push the envelope and make some great friends for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I should probably shut up and ask you, what did you want to talk about on this podcast, or what are you most passionate about, and what's got the fire in your belly going?
Well, just so for me, actually, the reason I wanted to come here on your show is that there's a lot of young dentists out there that thinks the private practice model is just scary and maybe not the path you want to take. And I can tell you right now, again, this is only my personal experience, is that if you do it right, if you, just like you said earlier, if you shake people's hands, if you speak the patient's language, if you're with the 5-year-old, just speak the 5-year-old language, the private practice is the way to go. You can grow a practice. I started in end of 2018. We've got almost 3,000 patients in our roster right now. So you can start a practice, even someone like me who has no business background, who has nothing. You can come in as long as the desire is there, the will is there. You can start from scratch and make it happen.
How old are you?
I'm pretty old.
How old are you?
I'm 45.
45. So, a lot of dentists, their instrument can't be as high energy as you. What is your more lifestyle secrets to maintain? I mean, you look young, but you look really young, but what do you focus on? Is it just all genetics natural and you just eat only Twinkies and cupcakes all day long? Do you focus on sleep, diet, exercise? What do you do to look that good, that young, that high energy, and at age 45?
It's a lifestyle. Yes. I love hiking, a little bit of exercise. I used to live in Phoenix. I used to go Camelback Mountain all the time. I miss that damn mountain, but I'm here in Dallas. There's no mountains. And so that's the only thing that I miss moving from Phoenix to the Dallas area. But really, for me, it's a balanced lifestyle. I mean, I like going out, working out 2-3 times a week. As much as I can. I like to eat a little healthier. So anything that I can control, I definitely do that. I'm more disciplined on those things.
I think it's funny that the bizarrest thing in the world statistically, every time me and the boys go hike Camelback Mountain, we like at least half the time run into Joyce Bassett. And, like Christmas morning, we go there. That's our Christmas morning hike up there. There she is, and her dressed up as Santa Claus. But my boys always say, what are the odds we live in a town with 3.8 million people? And every other time we go on that thing, we run into Joyce. But yeah, it's an attitude. Your attitude's going to develop your altitude, how fly you're going to high. And a lot of that is your how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself. My gosh, is there anything you want to talk about today that we didn't talk about?
No. I mean, honestly, so actually, I'm gonna say this. The one thing that actually gets me going, gets me excited, is that also going to learn something new. Meeting people and taking CEs, and it's just the nonstop CE experience has transformed me and the way I practice my dentistry, and just from that being that one single tooth doctor to start looking at the bigger picture, and then that comes with more experience and more training. But that's the one thing that I definitely want to encourage anybody is, so the last 3 years I probably have 700 hours of CE, and that's just because the more I think I know, there's so much I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, there's this much I don't know. So I got to go get more information, So you can't just get better. You can't be doing this if you're not constantly chasing and learning. And it's just a comprehensive approach is what I'm looking at.
And Socrates' last words were, "I know nothing." Sir Isaac Newton, when people had fought on him about his calculus, say, what humans know collectively is a drop of water, and what is unknown is the ocean. And you can always tell a moron when they absolutely know what's going on. And it didn't take me 6 weeks after graduation. It was a conversation with Gordon Christian. I was saying, well, how long does it take to know all this stuff? And he said, Howard, you're never going to know all this stuff. And the knowledge keeps going more. He goes, dentistry is bigger than you. And when I got out, there were 8 specialties. Now there's 12. I mean, you really think you could learn everything about 12 specialties and stay up on them? I mean, dentistry is so huge. And that's why when people get burned out, I'm like, well, it's not dentistry. It's your reaction, because when you're burned out, how can you be burned out when there's 12 specialties to pick from, 12 specialties that you could never learn everything about? you're practicing a profession where the whole profession since GV Black to today knows a drop of water, and the unknown about dentistry is the ocean, and you're burned out. Maybe there's something about your attitude. Maybe you're sick. Maybe you're hanging out with toxic people. I think the pandemic was really, really good. It forced people to take a 2-month sabbatical. I mean, they forced you to go home so that all the individual stores could die and it'd be all moved to corporate America. They didn't shut down Amazon. They didn't shut down Costco. They didn't shut down all the people paying that have a union and lobbyists and bribing our senators. But sitting home, a lot of dentists did a lot of soul searching, and they found out that, that hygienist I really hate from, I'm going to fire her. I'm only going to, the procedures that I learned how to do, but I hate, like to me this day, I love my 8 grandchildren more than anything, but I would rather have a hot needle stuck in my eye than do a pulpotomy on a kid. I mean, I hate pediatric dentistry.
It's hard.
Yeah, and my friend across the street, his name was Bob Sundberg. The big joke was, I'd pull out the top of the tooth and then send him to his office, and he'd pull out the bottom. He was the one that always bail out. You always got to have a buddy that will bail you out, and that for me that's Bob Sundberg. But he'd always say, I say, dude, you should do molar endo. He'd say, you know what? I'd rather be taken out in the backyard and beat with a stick than do a molar endo. And I would think, you know what? If that's the way you feel about molar endo, maybe you should not do molar endo. But it's just an attitude. You got to get excited. You got to have fun. And for me, it was always hiring people over your head. I mean, hiring staff that love dentistry as much as you did. I mean, when I always look for the internally motivated person. I mean, if I had to walk around and tell you what to do next, well, why aren't you going to the sea? Why aren't you eat, living, breathing, die? But it's just people, time, and money. And if you get the best people that love dentistry and have your attitude, I think they're going to do good.
I agree, 100%. I've got your book. I read your book. And I agree, 100%. You got to get the best people. The attitude is huge, So in my office, I don't tell nobody to do nothing. I mean, they all come in internally motivated. They run it just like their house or their family business. So, and that's the key, really.
And what's coming up in Dentaltown? I know you're working with Sam. I just had lunch with Sam the other day. And what are you doing with Sam, our editor of Dentaltown, and Tom Giacobbe? What are you doing in Dentaltown?
I'm so honored to be. So I've got a unique story. Obviously I grew up in a different environment. And so I'm sharing my story, how I got here to the US. I actually came here winning a visa lottery at age 20, came here, worked my way up. Even then, went to dental school at a late age, at age 32, and built a practice that I'm happy about. And so Dentaltown magazine has got my story featured for the April edition.
Are you going to be on the cover?
Yeah, I think
I own the magazine. They won't put me on the cover. They go, dude, you'll scare the pigeons. The pigeons won't even poop on the cover if you're on. But I would say one thing. In 1980, how old were you in 1980?
4.
And where were you living?
Eritrea.
Yeah. 1980 was the worst economy I'd ever seen. It was Paul Volcker from the New York Fed was moved into the big Fed, and to stop inflation, he had to raise interest rates 20.5%. Unemployment was 10.5%. I mean, it was just horrible. It was the worst I've ever seen in my life. And Ronald Reagan came in there from the Republican Party, which has traditionally been build a wall and keep out the immigrants, and because those compete with your job, blah 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 blah. And he saw how bad it was, and he said, you know what we need to do? We need to. He talked to Paul Volcker and he talked to the top economists. They said, you need all these fresh people. And he said, you need to offer amnesty to all these people. And he offered amnesty. And at the time, all the undocumented were 3 million. Well, I was a freshman in college. I graduated from high school in 80, went to Creighton 81, 82, 83, then got accepted to dental school a year early at Creighton and UMKC. And I watched what happened. He gave citizenship to 3 million undocumented workers who just jumped up and down and clapped, but now they can come out of the closet and be all that they can be. And I just want to tell America and everybody listening to that, you know what, if you don't like the Ukraine war, I'm glad you don't like it, because that's what you've been doing every year since 1776. And if you don't like this economy, why are you building a wall? Why don't you pull a Ronald Reagan, a Republican, and give amnesty? And if you ever want to see America truly become what America is, which was leaving the Eastern Hemisphere, where all the governments, top down, command and control, were stifling everybody, and America was about the freedom to move to this country and do it your way and work together as your neighbors. And I think that America, traditionally, they always make the right decision when they've exhausted every other possible alternative. The right decision for America is always the last choice. They want to believe all the other stuff, and then when none of it works, they're like, all right, what do we really have to do? You have to cut spending and raise your taxes and let in some fresh people with fresh ideas, like Nikola Tesla. He wasn't born in the United States. He migrated here. They worship him like a god, but they forget the story. Every time I'm in one of these small towns, I say, well, what's going on? Well, the main factory, we're a town of 5,000. The main factory, closed down 5 years ago, and it's been ghost town ever since. And then I say, well, who started that factory? They never know. And then you Google it, and 3 seconds later, it's like, did you know he was born in Armenia? And he immigrated here, and he opened that factory, and it's been, it was the biggest factory for 100 years now. Today, could that boy in Armenia, could he come here? Oh, hell no. And look at you. America needs 1 million more boys from Eritrea that have your attitude and your karma and energy. So if you want to make America great again, you don't have to let in a bunch of drunken Irish like me. Maybe there's too many of them, but my God, when someone is willing to leave their home and travel 10,000 kilometers, cross an ocean just to join your team, and you won't let them in, are you out of your mind? I wish everybody in America was a first-generation immigrant that had your attitude and charisma. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an honor to podcast you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right, my man. See you around.
Awesome. Thank you.